Pretty quickly, as we read through the scriptures, we see that God reveals himself to us as a father, and not just any father, but as a perfect, loving father. A perfect, loving father that gives us, humanity, his very own image. And we read this as soon as Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27. And this loving father loves us and doesn't just give us his image, but he gives us an identity, a very good identity. And we use a simple tool or a simple illustration to help us not only understand how this dynamic works in our lives, but how we ought to live as well. And we call it the gospel identity triangle. As we read through the scriptures and we see our God as a loving God who gives us a good identity as his beloved, we come to see that this is freely given to us. And then it is out of this very good identity as his beloved, under his perfect love for us, that then we are called to then live out of loving obedience to him. And we read about this dynamic very clearly in the book of 1 John, chapter 4, verses 7 through 21. And it's here we see that our good God loves us and gives us an identity of love as his beloved. And then we are called to live out of that love in loving obedience and loving and serving others. And we learn that it doesn't work the other way, as it often does in our culture. We see this, for instance, oftentimes in sports, where we're called to almost live a certain way, to earn this identity by working very hard so that we can have the identity as an athlete. And then it is then and only then, when we've worked really hard to get this identity, that we're then noticed by the coach in order to live into that identity. And it's beyond that, right? It's oftentimes in the workplace and even in some of our homes, that this works backwards. But it doesn't work this way with God. God has already loved us. He first loved us and sent his Son so that we might have this gospel identity of love. And he first loved us, and then we are called to then live out of that love because we already have God's favor and a loving obedience of him. And we call this tool the gospel identity triangle.